Thank you guys so much for joining us for our last panel of the summit. I hope you guys are feeling connected and made some new friends today. My name is Laura Lee, and I'm a founder and CEO of LL Consulting. I'm honored to be moderating this powerful conversation surrounding knowing your worth. This panel is sponsored by Cargo, and it's all about gaining the tools to recognize, embrace, and communicate your true value in the workplace. We'll dive into strategies to help you advocate for yourself, negotiate with confidence, and unlock your full potential. So please join me in welcoming our panelists, Frank Lee, Global Head of Industry Independent Agencies at Snap, Michele Ching, VP Revenue Ops and Transformation at Sightly, and Asha Shivaji, CEO and co-founder at SeeMe Index. I would love for you guys to have a few minutes to introduce yourselves.
All right, I'll get started. So somebody said this earlier. I have a really long title, I realized. So my name's Frank. I've been on Snap fairly new, 5 months. But I've been into this world of marketing and advertising for about 25 years. But I'm like a DR nerd. So I started off at Yahoo, and then I was at Facebook for many years running the e-commerce team, and then I joined Snap 5 months ago. In between all that, I kind of straddled back and forth between agency side and platform. And most recently before Snap, I founded my own independent agency, sold it, and then came back to the dark side on the platform side.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michele. I've been on the sales side of this industry for 20 years now, so quite a while. I would say that I've made a career out of studying how people and businesses sustain wealth. And so I feel really grateful and honored that you guys have invited me to talk a little bit about knowing your worth today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Asha Shivaji, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of SeeMe Index. At SeeMe Index, we are a responsible AI company that measures how inclusive brands are, and we do that to help them engage with opportunity audiences. Before starting SeeMe Index, I was at Google for about 6 years, running global marketing services within our global sales team. And before that, I was a beauty marketer and then a digital marketer at Apple and Disney. And along with being the CEO of SeeMe Index today, I consult for the UN and a group called the Unstereotype Alliance that works to eradicate harmful stereotypes in media and advertising.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. So when we think of knowing your worth, this can be synonymous with self-advocacy, an action that often requires navigating discomfort. So we'd like to have an interactive discussion with everyone, virtually as well as in person. You guys will see in the next screen a QR code pop up where you guys will be able to scan with your phone and answer the questions that are prompted. Your answers are anonymous. And so the first question, if we can just post to that, it is, what are some ways to self-advocate?
It's a fun, interactive exercise.
Social media, speaking up, affirmations, okay.
Speak up seems to be.
Yeah, seeing a lot of speaking up. That's great. Okay, I think that's awesome. I think that really helps us. Our second question, we'll just scroll to that one. What word or words come to mind when we think of challenges with self-advocacy? Imposter syndrome is big. Confidence is also a big one.
I'm having so much fun right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're learning is a lot of these words resonate with all of us. Okay, this is great. Okay, so we've kind of heard from the audience on kind of what their perspectives are on ways to self-advocate, as well as what are some of their challenges. So if we want to flip back, we'd love to hear from our panelists. What does self-advocacy mean to each of you? And if you can share a moment when you had to advocate for yourself, and what helped you navigate that process?
I'll start. So self-advocacy for me, it took me a long time because I think the challenge with it inherently is the emotional side of doing it. It's like you're advocating for yourself. It's a big thing, especially if the stakes are higher, at least in your mind it's higher. The pressure's really on, but over time, what I've been able to do in terms of like kind of tricks for myself is really this notion of stating facts. Like, if you do excellent work and unbiasedly, if you can look at that body of work and feel that it is something that that should be recognized and rewarded, then it should be that much easier to try and advocate for yourself. In some respects, I always think about it as like if you had like a colleague or a friend and you saw their body of work and you can explain how well their work was, just find and replace said individual with your own name. I think that's really, really important because, a lot of you guys have really great work, I imagine, just constant repeated success and great projects that you worked on. The challenge is when you say, I did this, I did that, then you just get in your head. And that's the problem. So if you can kind of separate yourself, I think that's step one. The other piece that I found was when I finally mustered up the courage when I was, yesterday to advocate for myself, it didn't pan out the way I wanted to. And it was such a big moment that I figured if I prepared and I did everything I needed to, and I rose up to the big moment and I didn't get it, it was okay in hindsight. At the time, it was terrible for me. But in hindsight, it was fine because this like repeated pattern of doing great work and advocating for yourself over time, that pattern of work is what kind of helped me within an organization start to get the reputation and the success and whatever that comes along with it, right? And so stay persistent with it and state facts.
I love that. That makes so much sense. And I think that a lot of us on this journey probably have experienced something exactly what you just described. For me, Laura, I love this question. When I think about self-advocacy, I actually love that it's hyphenated because I want to separate both of those things. So first, I would say what it means to me is first to look at yourself. And which part of yourself are you looking at? The part of you that's accomplished some things that you're stating in facts consistently over time, or the part of you that has a personal life that cares about, I'm not sure, whatever wellness means to you and self-care means to you. And then once you know that part of yourself, then the second part of the phrase comes into mind, advocacy. How are you now, having reflected on who you are, going to advocate for the parts of yourself that you want to see be successful in the corporate spaces that you're taking up? A moment comes to mind for me where I had to advocate for my latest promotion, which is probably the biggest title promotion I've had in my life, to mom. So I did exactly that. First, I turned toward that new self. Who am I today in the context of this corporate environment, in the context of this industry as mom version of me, not just ad sales version of me. And once I got very clear on what that meant, then it was time to advocate. But I didn't really know how to advocate for something that didn't feel appropriate for a corporate space, right? Like, how do you say, hey, I'm trying to be the best mom I can be. Do you want to give me a raise? Like, that doesn't feel like those two things connect, right? Like, consistent work over time, but by the way, job change, you can meet me there, right? So I did another thing that, here's another tip, is I turned to my personal board of directors. Maybe some of you have them, maybe some of you don't, but think of them like your peer mentors, people that are in your trusted network who understand you, but also understand your industry deeply. You can turn to your personal board of directors and say, hey, I'm trying to bridge this gap. Here's my latest job title, mom. Here's my current job title, VP of Sales and Revenue for the West Coast. These two things don't really meet because this version of me on the sales side needs to be on a plane all the time, meeting with clients all the time, dropping whatever it is that needs to be dropped in order to meet a client or a partner's demand. But now I have a new client, and he needs me a lot more. So how do I bridge that? And my personal board of directors came through really, really strong, some of them here in this audience, and said, here's what you're gonna do. Write down all of the things you think you can't ask your employer. And now turn that into a presentation or a job description. And advocate, ask, and see what they say. They might say no, or they might get creative. And so after 2 months of negotiation, I was able to create this new role, VP of RevOps and Transformation, where I focus at Sightly on bringing to market not only what we've been doing, which is our managed service offering, but carving out new streams of income around self-service and intelligence work, rooted in our AI-driven ad tech.
So for me, self-advocacy has 3 parts. It's about knowing who you are, knowing what you want, and knowing how to ask for it. And I think what we have to all acknowledge is in our community and in media and advertising, we don't always have these sort of role models or encouragement to lean into this. And especially when we look at media and advertising, we all seek to be seen, and we believe when you see it, you can be it. And there are not that many examples of Asian leaders in media and advertising. And in fact, for this, I started trying to rack my brain, of course, asked ChatGPT, and there were 2 examples. It was Ali Wong in Beef, and then there was Greta Lee in The Morning Show. So a really short list. We can do a lot better. But this was a lot of what I kind of grew up with. I grew up in Minnesota in the 80s. I was the only person of color in my classroom, and it was something that I struggled with a lot. And it really drove me to start SeeMe Index. And today, with this company, I have to advocate for the company and myself constantly, every day. And I really see them as synonymous things. But it wasn't something that I could do overnight. And it was something that I had to practice for a long time. And I think earlier in my career, I did a lot of assuming. I assumed my boss understood the work I was doing, assumed people knew the value I was driving to the team. And those assumptions did not work very well for me, so I employed a tactic very much like you. And I decided that my how I could advocate for myself was really via one of my favorite formats to communicate, which is a deck. So I made a presentation of really what I was working on, how that aligned to what I was hoping to achieve in my career. And I shopped it around the same way I would with a project. I shared it with my manager. I shared it with my manager's manager. I shared it with the teams that I was working with. So everyone sort of had a roadmap of where they knew I wanted to get with my career. And I'm not saying a deck is the right medium for everybody in this room, but I think it's important to lean into whatever that medium is that's gonna help you be most successful in advocating for yourself.
That's amazing. So Frank, I love what you said about thinking about advocating for your friend. I think many of us in here feel that advocating for others is a little less risky, maybe a little bit less vulnerable. It's more comfortable when you're not being self-serving. Everyone in here and joining us virtually works or is adjacent to, in some degree, the marketing advertising industry, right? Every day in and out, you're working on a different brand or a product that you are help promoting or help creating assets for. But if we think about that product now becoming ourselves, why do we find self-branding so difficult when we do it every single day for a different product, right? So one of the words that we saw pop up earlier in the quiz, right, was confidence. Confidence is something that doesn't always come naturally, especially when you're advocating for yourself. So Frank, what are some practices or mindsets that have helped you build confidence to speak up and have tough conversations?
Part of I think this idea of speaking up for ourselves, I think it comes from our background. I think this idea of like, don't boast, come in with humility. I think you really nailed it earlier when you were like, look, when I was younger, I figured my work would speak for itself. And I think many of us probably thought that at some point in our career, where it's like, look, scoreboard, I killed it, I got an A or whatever it is, and then somehow things should all align, right? So that really resonated. And so part of it's like our cultural upbringing. The other part is confidence. I've always struggled with confidence issues. I just have. Over time, I've gotten better and better and more comfortable with it. For me, the way I really got comfortable with who I was when I finally took the time to understand who I am and what my purpose was, what my visions and values were. Because prior to that, all I would do is just compare myself to the world. You know, oh, so-and-so is better at finance or numbers than I am, or so-and-so is a better strategist than I am, or so-and-so is a better creative than I am. And it was like constant waves of like self-doubt and challenges of like, when am I gonna be good enough? And then suddenly I changed the narrative to like, Frank, what are you good at? What do you love to do? Where do you get energy, right? And I went on this whole journey to find my purpose. It wasn't, I kind of, I guess, thought at some point there'll be a light bulb that pops up when like you know who you are and you have your purpose and you're good. And then after talking to some folks and learning more, I realized, no, you gotta go find it, right? And so for me, I get the most energy when I can help people realize and achieve their potential. Like when I can help them see it in themselves. How many times do you have a friend or a person you know and you're like, that person or you are so good at X, and they're like, oh shucks, no I'm not. I'm like, how do you not see it? I see it clear as day as how good you are, right? And so that was when I sat down and realized, okay, that's one of my things that I really get energy from. That's where I get my purpose. Suddenly, everything else didn't matter as much. I didn't care if I wasn't as good with numbers. And then suddenly I had this foundation within that gave me the confidence to go execute the things I needed to. Otherwise, before that, every performance review or every single meeting with a senior executive, I'd be so worried about how they thought about me, I couldn't actually do the fucking work, sorry. You know what I mean? So confidence starts with taking the time to genuinely learn and discover who you are and what you really care about. And then hopefully things will fall into place. That was my story anyways.
I love that. I'm going to build on it, and I completely agree as well. The more you can be in touch with what's really motivating you, the better. I think on a tactical side that's complementary is it's just a lot of practice. I think when it comes to self-advocacy, a lot of times we wait for that performance review, that moment where you're like, this is going to be that time that I speak up and I say all the things. But you have to do it every day. It's just like the brands we work on, to Laura's point. Like, it's a garden, you tend, you have to keep reminding people, telling people about it. And I think the more and more you do it, the more it becomes practice and innate to you.
Can I just, one thing I totally forgot I was gonna say on that. Like, I had an old friend of mine, he passed away unfortunately, but he was an unbelievable sports psychologist. So he used to work with like Russell Wilson and Venus and Serena Williams, so like Navy SEALs. So every like different area of excellence, he would help them get their mind right. And one of the things he said that just stuck with me was success leaves clues. So like to your point where like you said practice, right? As you practice your excellent work in anything, whether it be advocating or just doing the work, that success will leave clues to give you confidence to do it again and take on a bigger project. So it just stuck with me. The more and more at-bats and reps that you get, I have a lot of sports analogies, I'm sorry, I just realized. Those successful patterns, they're just gonna build on top of each other and give you the clues you need to tackle the bigger project.
Yeah, I think that's so amazing to hear, because I think what we all feel is that taking those steps that align with our own vision and values are really what's going to help us build that confidence and that comfort that we have in this discussion. So, you know, to think about this tactically, I think many of us in this room, we feel that we're kind of in a world that often measures worth by external achievements. So how do you stay connected to your own definition of value when people think of things like pay equity or navigating layoffs or promotions as a definition of self-worth? So can you share what strategies or mindset our audience can utilize to help navigate these conversations? Michele, would you like to kick us off?
I would love to kick us off. All right, so I think in order for me to answer this question effectively, I want to share a little bit about my own personal journey with exactly this question for myself in my career. About 10 years ago, I had a collection of undiagnosed symptoms. It included chronic neck and shoulder pain to the point where I couldn't turn my head. Is Mike Chatakis still here? He remembers we were working together and he was like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, I literally cannot turn my head. And I also had cystic acne, and then it kind of peaked at this point where I was in and out of the ER for uncontrollable vomiting. It was really bad. And then coincidentally, but now I know it's not such a coincidence, but at the same time, and I thought separately, I was experiencing this profound disconnection to my career. I felt completely unfulfilled by this work that we do, which was sad because at one point I really, really loved what we do. But I just was like, why are we doing this? Same thing over and over again, putting the same words on RFPs, putting the same proposals out there, calling it a big idea, and I'm not sure that it is, right? I'm like, what are we even doing? And so I was really having this moment of like, I don't know what creates fulfillment. I had to go and search for it. What creates fulfillment in work? And it turns out, Frank, you're right. It's purpose. But then I had a harder question. What creates purpose? They didn't teach that in any of the classes that I've ever been to. So how do you go about finding your purpose? So I went on that search, and it took me pretty far until I learned that your purpose is hidden. Not so. It's hidden in plain sight. It's hidden within your childhood experiences, connected to the work that you do today. So I thought, am I the only one who's experiencing this? Frank just told me I'm not. But it turns out that I also did a little citizen science survey, and I asked other executive leaders, hey, tell me your story. And it turns out 97% of the people that I actually talked to, there were quite a lot of them, have experienced the exact same thing that Frank experienced, that I experienced, maybe Asha, you experienced. So if this is going to be a prerequisite to climbing the corporate ladder, what are we going to do about it? Are we all just going to hit a point and have a midlife crisis at some point in our career, wondering what is our purpose, why are we all here? Maybe, or I propose a different solution. I think we should teach leaders and our next generation of leaders, you all, how to heal from the inside out. You are already designed for it. Healing is not a mystery. It is your birthright. And until you figure out how to do that, you might have a collection of undiagnosed physical symptoms like I did, or you might just feel a profound disconnection and not fulfilled, disconnection to your career and not fulfilled by the work that you do. So if you're looking for tips, back to your question, full circle, here's what I studied to learn about this. I studied attachment theory that goes into learning more about how you form relationships from the moment you are born. I studied polyvagal theory that teaches you about your nervous system and how your nervous system adapts to the conditions around you and your family and in your community. I learned about somatic experiencing, the way that we store trauma and memories and emotions processing in our body. And lastly, I studied internal family systems, where it teaches you that from a psychological perspective, you are a collection of parts that make you up as a whole. Through studying all of these modalities, actually, all of my physical symptoms went away. So, if all of that feels too overwhelming, there's a super easy framework that I created in preparation just for this panel. The framework is ROAR, R-O-A-R. First, R is reflect. What Frank said. Reflect on who you are, what is important to you in this moment, and also to the next moment and the career transition that you're navigating to the person you're becoming. Then own it. So own it by meeting with your personal board of directors, your peer mentors, your executive mentors. Speak your truth out loud. Once you can take ownership of it in safe places, you're teaching your nervous system that it's safe to A, advocate. So then you can advocate for this version of yourself today and the version that you're becoming. And lastly, once you've advocated, then R, reclaim. Reclaim the person that you are, the person you're becoming, and the person that you know that you're meant to be.
Just drop it.
I know. I'm like, I think we're done.
And the panel is over.
Well, I love that. I'll share, I also definitely went on a personal journey looking for my purpose. Mine included a trip to Sedona, screaming off of a cliff that I was looking for my purpose. So, you can seek it in a lot of places, but it's definitely worth the journey. I think what I'll just add and complement is getting under the hood of some of the external sort of ways that we sometimes measure success. I think in a career, it can often be a job title. It can be that salary bump. I think trying to really dissect for yourself what is behind that makes you want that, that's not just the thing on paper, could be really helpful as you're trying to discover what that path is and what that purpose is a bit, and then finding that joy and success in those things that ladder up to it as well, because not everything in life is going to be measured by that title and that salary bump.
Sorry, one thing that's more of I think, a watch out, I actually caught myself doing this a bit when I was younger, taking advice from, folks that have been there ahead of me around, make sure, I love I wouldn't do it, but it's amazing that you did it, like this presentation of like getting enrollment and alignment with like your manager and your manager's manager. Like, if I hit these goals, like, we're agreeing, right? I'm gonna get the next rung on the ladder, right? I think it's very thoughtful and the right approach. The one thing I found myself sometimes doing, and I just caution everybody, I was so focused at a period of my life, I was worried about the presentation layer and not the actual substance of the work. And I see people in companies today that focus more on the presentation of them versus the work, and it's really a yes and. Like, yes, you should advocate for yourself. Yes, you should make sure that people know that you're doing good work, but don't skimp on the actual work, the quality of work, whatever it may be. Like, you have to make sure you take care of that, and then figure out how to kind of advocate for yourself and promote it. One of the things that I remember, or I realized, going back to Asha, what you said around, I just figured people would just see my work and we'd be done. If you just kind of zoom out, let's just say Snap, for example. Snap has 5,000 employees, right? So imagine if like this was like a big high school, right? And in high school, if you do something, you do something that stands out, people find out quickly, right? But at a company like this, 5,000 people, it is just impossible for people to know, oh my gosh, look what I did on that, report or that project, and just have it like spread like wildfire within the organization. You have to make sure the right people see the work that you did. So that's where I just had common sense. Like, there's 5,000 people, or like, like when we were at Facebook years ago, it was like 40,000 people. There's no possible way that we could actually expect people just to know the work that you do. So I guess, mixed both messages. One, advocate for yourself because of the numbers, but more importantly, and it bothers me as a hiring manager, as a leader, when people overtly go out of their way to showcase their work to me, and the moment I look at it, it's crap. And I'm like, you're just worried about the presentation of yourself. Get your shit done. We shouldn't curse so much. Like, get your work done, and then stand on your own 2 feet and, promote it.
Yeah, I think it's so important, because I think what we're hearing is nobody's going to campaign harder for yourself than yourself, right? But you have to do it with true value. And so you can't rush through it. You can't have messy work, as you say. And if you're the one who's going to be presenting this, you want to put your best foot forward. And I think the other thing that's very important that all of you guys have mentioned is decoupling things like a job title or a certain pay scale or things like that as your definition of the fact that you've hit success is so important, because it helps you find your true purpose, what's actually making you happy, what's driving you when it comes to actually taking that next move, whether it's a different role, a company, or so forth. So I think we've taken away some really great strategies from that.
Laura, can I add something? Shameless plug, okay? Just brace yourself, and you actually have to help me out with this one. If you don't have tools to do the things that all three of us have talked about, you've already made it because you're part of AIA. And I know AIA offers a scholarship to do exactly the things we just said this whole time to do. What is the name of that scholarship?
Future Asian Leaders.
Yeah, Future Asian Leaders. Apply, because there's specific programming within that program. I know because my dear friend Van created the programming for it. She founded API Rising. And her curriculum is designed for the members of AIA to do exactly what we're talking about, knowing your worth and having a practice for advocating for yourself rooted in the substantive work that you do.
Yeah, I think as we mentioned earlier, that's a program that we offer every single year, and it's something that there are many participants who are joined us at the summit today, and it's an amazing program. We've seen great success with it, a lot of value that has been brought to it. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So we've been talking a lot about our current experiences and kind of what we've been sharing. If we could look back, what's like one thing you would wish you had told your younger self, something you had known about self-worth and knowing your worth and owning your value?
I can kick this one off. So I think we touched on this a little bit, but I look back and I worked at Google for a long time, and at many big tech companies, like levels are a big deal, or you think they're a big deal. I think they were perfectly created to make everyone think they're a big deal. But the whole time you're super focused on, I need to get to this level. And I remember some of my best friends are here today, and I remember I got this level that I always had wanted, and they're like, what's your new title? I'm like, it's the same. They're like, what's your new responsibility? It's the same. Like, did you get more money? It's like a little bit. So I think when I look back, I really wish I'd put more value and recognize the value in the things that I was learning and experiencing, the stretch projects. The way I consult for the UN now was a stretch project I took on at Google. I was leading the partnership between Google and the Unstereotype Alliance, and when I left Google, I asked the Unstereotype Alliance if I could continue on as a consultant. And I look at those experiences, and those have gotten me so much further in reaching my purpose and the goals that I have and building my company today than any level I ever achieved through someone else's structure of value. So I wish I had understood that more and really cherished what I was learning on the journey.
I'll go next. All right, so you said one thing, but I thought of two. Sorry. Okay. So first thing is I would tell my younger self, guess what? It all works out. So that way I can spend the rest of the time just being excited, watching how it unfolds. And then the second thing I would say to my younger self is try your best, even though climbing feels really important because you do need to figure out who you are in this space. Try your best to saying no to anything on a scale of 1 to 10 that feels like an 8, because it's just going to take up time, space and time away from the 9s and 10s.
It's a good one. So I have two as well. So I talked about like excellent work, get your work done. When you do great work, I wish I told myself, like two things I think stand out for an employee. When someone does great work and then when they scale it, I think it shows a level of leadership. Leadership is not a title, it is a mindset. And so, for example, if you do something great, if you can think, how does this better the broader organization by getting it into the hands of others? When I have employees that think about scaling their impact and scaling their work, they rise to the top in my mind, because they're actively thinking about not just making their own stuff really good, but how to make the whole organization or the system better, right? And so the specific answer is, I wish I thought the value of scaling my impact more when I was younger. So that's like one piece. The other piece, and it kind of goes back to something we talked about earlier, be persistent. Show up and consistently have a pattern of great work. My analogy here, another sports one, sorry, but any NBA player can score 40 points. It was only Michael Jordan that did it every single night. When you have this pattern of excellence every single time, the world will move out of the way for people that know what they want. And so do the work, have your purpose, and things will fall into place, I promise you. May or may not be on this arbitrary timeline you place on it, but if you do that consistent work, you scale your impact, you'll do big things, I promise. So
I think one of the things that I also wanted to surface, Michele, you brought up, having this feeling of, is it going to work out, right? It's a fear that we have in the moment when you're making a tough decision or you have to have a hard conversation. One thing that I've learned since joining Agents in Advertising is I have a community of support that is surrounding me to help me with that decision. So without this kind of network that I've created, without making these connections that I have, I probably would have gone into that and said, I think I'm all alone in this decision. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to be the only one who's going to raise my hand and cause a disruption to what I feel is not right or not valuable or whatever that thought may be. But I've learned there's other people who think just like me, who look just like me, who also feel just like me. So if this gives you any comfort in making those tough decisions, having those hard conversations, you're not alone. And so hopefully that helps give you guys a little bit of validation and support in knowing it will all work out because you have a community and a network to surround you with. So thank you guys so much for sharing your amazing wisdom. So our insightful panelists actually wanted to share actionable key takeaways for everyone today. So if we flip over to the next slide, they are to make self-advocacy part of your everyday. It's not just a one-time thing, right? Find your own brand of self-advocacy. This means something different to every single person in here. And expand the aperture of how you define success. It is not just a job title. It's not just compensation. It's not whether or not you were laid off and what your performance means in that matter, right? So hopefully this was very, very helpful for everyone here. Thank you guys so much for sharing your knowledge, your experiences, and connecting and building community with us. We'd love to open it up to the audience for any questions.
Hi, thank you so much. Jody at Dentsu. Been doing this for quite a while as well, but I know that it took me a long time in my career to kind of like figure out like what my personal cocktail was for how I advocate for myself. But would love your thoughts for, others here on some ways where you can start to advocate, because self-advocacy doesn't always mean I'm going to put a big presentation together and tell everybody why I'm cool or what I'm working on. Sometimes it's just sharing your work with others in practice. So would love some thoughts from you on how people here can start small to continue to build up in practice.
Go ahead.
I was going to build on Frank's point from earlier and scaling your work. I think a lot of times people aren't aware of the great work that you're doing. You're not sharing it beyond your team, but there's a lot of value that can be derived by sharing it. So I think sometimes it's just extending a little bit of who's in your circle that you work with, who you can share that with more, and build a personal brand for yourself by doing that.
For me, I'm really big on very, very clear goals with my manager or the department or the organization. Getting very, very clear on alignment on the goals, and then making sure I report back how I'm progressing on those goals. And then to your point, I think this idea of cross-functionals that should know how I'm doing on those goals. That's like daily behaviors around just giving people to understand the work I'm doing, it's impactful, the goals are clear, and you're just kind of sharing, I guess. I mean, that's kind of, yeah, that's what I would do.
I'll add the one thing, because I agree with everything you guys both just said. The one thing that I feel like I would just put in as a missing piece, not to keep championing this ROAR framework, but the reflect and own part of that, the first two letters, reflect and own, I think is the critical missing piece. So I talked a little bit in our earlier panel about advocating for my new role as mom. That doesn't really fit in a championing my work, right? It doesn't fit. So I worked with my personal board of directors and my peer mentors to basically create a whole new job description that I didn't show the company because it included stuff about me being a mom. What is my ideal day-to-day life? Actually, when I wake up, I have my day and I go to bed. What does that day look like? And then how is my career a piece of that? Not sometimes when you compartmentalize, I love your question, but it puts you into, well, how do I advocate for myself at work? Well, first, reflect and own, how do I want to create my ideal life and career? Now I can advocate because I have a new perspective on it, because I'm thinking about career as a component of my life, not like the project I'm advocating for, if that makes any sense.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alan. I'm from Cargo. Michele, I love what you shared about ROAR and the research that you're doing. Well, by the way, congratulations on becoming a mom as well.
Thank you.
So as a parent myself, I'm on my own journey of breaking the cycle of generational trauma. So as I heal my inner child, when it comes to advocating for yourself, how do you break through the moments when you do great work, like Frank, you're mentioning, and someone compliments it and you just downplay it?
Let me make sure I understand your question. When you're saying, how do I advocate or celebrate my work that someone compliments, but I have this like pattern of reacting to like downplay it, like, oh, no, or my personal flavor of it is like, oh, thank you, but it was really Asha. Like I just like punt constantly. Well, no, but have you talked to, like Laura did most of it, right? So like that's my own flavor of that version of it. Are you asking like how to stop doing that?
There's, I guess, two ways you kind of deflect it. Like, you do such a great job for advocating for others, but you never advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
And then the second part is when someone compliments you, you're like, oh, it was nothing. Oh, it was no big deal.
Yeah.
And you kind of just sweep it under the rug because it's directly to you, and you kind of downplayed that kind of compliment.
So I guess I personally, if I'm hearing this correctly, what was your name again?
Alan.
Alan?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So, Alan, I think you're 80% of the way there because you already know it's a pattern that you want to change, right? So then I would volley the question back to you. What would you rather say instead? And if you're not sure, I would say back to community, right? Like I keep bringing up personal board of directors. I'd probably be like, Nancy, I want to stop doing this. What other thing could I say here? And Nancy would quite literally say, all right, here's 3 options. You could keep doing the thing that you're doing. You don't have to stop because it's like it's working for you. It feels good. It feels authentic to you. But why don't you layer in a piece and say, you know what I learned from this is, or she'll come, honestly, and Nancy's sitting right there, I'd legitimately ask her. And she would just give me some options of another thing to say if stopping that pattern feels hard. Eventually, over time, when you practice that, you may choose from a place of agency and consciousness and awareness, healing inner child, all the things.
Yep.
You will choose now differently because you can. So your first step, you're aware. Mm-hmm. Now you get to have a choice.
Cool. Thank you.
One thing I'll just add to that is understanding that there has to be some truth in what people are saying. If you're hearing it continuously, that people are complimenting your work, and I know it's uncomfortable to hear, right? That's something that's very common in this room and in our culture. It's like we don't want to put the spotlight on ourselves, right? But the more you hear it, you must hear in yourself, say, I actually probably am doing good work, right? And the more you kind of absorb that, it gives you a little bit more confidence each day to say, okay, other people are recognizing me, recognizing my work, so there has to be some truth to this. So just day by day, right? You're absorbing these kinds of truths that are coming to you.
Which is what Frank was saying about like your success will leave breadcrumbs for you.
Just say thank you.
That's what my mom
You said
told
it.
me,
Knowing
so.
it, acknowledging what you're doing is the majority of the battle. Great. Now I do the same thing. I'm like, oh shucks, no. Like I get it, but like just say thanks. Mm-hmm. Like put your chest out. Like yeah. Like what do you expect?
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Meghna. I love this tactical information that you guys have shared because I'm probably on this journey of what is my purpose or want to start. So, how do I start? I know you did a lot of learning or read specific things that I think are fantastic, but is there, I think for me, like, do I read a book? Do I watch a podcast? Do I follow, like what is that thing that kind of ignites it? I would love to see what you guys did to start that journey. Actual tactical.
I actually would love to share.
Please.
I literally did this, I think when I was 40, early 40s, like 43, 44. I had this moment, I freaked out. I was at a friend's company in Costa Mesa, and he's showing me a tour of his office, and he stops at this hallway, and there's this like sign, and it was the most concise like language of his purpose in life. I didn't even hear it. For some reason, what crossed my mind was like, oh, he knows his purpose. And I was like, well, what? I don't know my purpose. And all I could think was, why I was actually, specifically, I was afraid he was going to ask me what my purpose was in that moment. I would just fumbled over like, well, it's to be a father and a great husband and, get to the next, I just realized it was so distraught, and it was pre-pandemic when I was going up the 405 back home. The whole time I'm thinking, what the hell am I supposed to do? Talked to my wife, talked to a few folks, and they're like, my wife made a good point. She's like, well, if you want to look for where you want to go in life and what you're meant to do, part of your input is like, know where you came from. So I talked to a lot of my family. My aunt wrote a memoir. I read that. I talked to a lot of trusted allies and friends and family, going back to the community aspect, the network, right? And I literally sat down and like grabbed a beer or coffee, and I was like, hey, what's your purpose in life? And a couple things I picked up on. Number one, most people don't know that answer, and they were fumbling through it in the same way I would have that day in the hallway. But the few that did, they knew it. They just looked me in the eyes, and they just like, oh, well, let me tell you, right? Couple notes, creative people tend to know their purpose. People in fashion tend to know their purpose. I mean, like literally pattern recognition. One guy, he was here earlier, Peter Kim, he used to run Hudson, he's the founder of Hudson Jeans. I remember sitting down with him, and Peter's a nut, by the way, and he knows this. So like, he's like, Frank, I've been searching for my purpose since high school. And the one thing that he told me that just stood out was, first off, your purpose is whatever you decide your purpose is right now. And then if it changes because you change over time, great, then there'll be a new purpose for you. The reason why that was important for me is if you're on this journey right now, at the time I was so concerned that I had to get this right. I was like, I have to figure out my purpose so it's etched into my tombstone. He gave me the permission to be like, look, like think about it, what gets you energy, go do it, and if it changes, then change it. So get into action, go into motion, talk to your friends and family, the people that know you, go read, go watch podcasts, and then put a stake in the ground and just know that you can move the stake if you need to in a year from now.
That's fantastic because I give students that advice, right? When you're graduating, your first job is not the only job you're going to have. You're going to have like 10 or 15 jobs before you kind of figure out what you like in your career. And I guess that's the same thing in life, right? You have to try a bunch of things to figure out what feels right. So thank you.
Are you sure? Okay. I'm like, this is going to be long. All right. Okay, sister. I mean, I feel you. Okay, so here's the thing. It is a search, it is a journey, but I guess what I really feel called to say, to add on to what Frank already shared, is that it's already within you. And what we've done over time from childhood, this is what I've learned from learning all these things, is we have learned how to shave off the different parts of the parts that make us up to better fit into the corporate spaces so that we can win that game because we think that that's the game worth winning. And so I've found, I know I already shared this, that most folks 10 to 20 years into their career, they have that aha moment of like, oh God, I achieved all the things. It doesn't feel so good. It doesn't feel like I thought I was going to come to this like promised land of like freedom, and I actually feel more trapped than I did when I started. And so why I reference the modalities that I did very specifically is because whether it's a podcast, a book format, a group course, coach, mentor, whatever, utilizing tools that help reconnect your somatic biology with your neuropsychology to understand how you make choices rooted in the experiences of your childhood. It sounds very complex, but it all lives within you already. It's just sort of like an unlock switch almost that you have to like come to, and then you're like, oh my God, as my purpose, my iterator changed the language of it, it's still me. It's still my lived experience. It's still cues from my intuition, from my body, my sensation. The feeling of a gut instinct might actually not happen in your gut. It might happen in your spine, up your back. But until you articulate like where it is in your body, crystallizing intuition as a felt sense. 80% of the information that we use to make choices is body to brain, not the other way around. So mind over matter doesn't even actually make biological sense. So there's just so many things in our corporate culture especially that don't align with the way that you're already designed. And so full circle, what I mostly feel called to tell you is regardless of the format, the roadmap to your purpose already lives within you. And you can just seek out support and community to help you unlock those pieces.
I will just add massive +1 to that. It's definitely inside of you. I think one thing that I learned from the healer in Sedona when I was screaming off that cliff was really to just make it delicious. I think it can feel like so heavy to try and find your purpose and what you want to do. But his advice was just daydream about it, make it delicious. Like, what would this look like? What would it feel like? And it took this pressure off of like needing to figure out what it was and exactly how to get there. And I could just enjoy the dream of it. So I love it.
Thank you so much.
Hi, this is bouncing off of Alan's question earlier and your comment about when people compliment you, you know there's like a nugget of truth in there. But I don't know if you have this problem, I have this problem, but for me when I get compliments, it's like, "Ugh, you're just saying that." But when it's a criticism, it's like, oh my God, it's so true, I'm so awful. Like we put so much weight behind criticism versus praise. So on the topic of like finding that nugget of truth, like how do you balance external opinions, whether it's criticism or praise?
I have a lot to say about it. What's your name?
Emily.
Emily, this is such a vulnerable question, and it kind of goes back to what I was just saying to Meghna a moment ago. If your neuropsychology is wired such that in your home, it was safer to optimize to criticism and not praise, then that's actually just an adaptation that you needed to survive your childhood environment. And so as an adult, naturally, you're doing it because it's what helped you get to this amazing place that you are today. And so if you actually also take that a step further and think about now the corporate environment, especially corporate America, optimizing to criticism is a really good strategy. It works. Doesn't feel good, but it works, right? And so first I would say compassion. If you're craving the balance, like similar to Alan, you're already 80% of the way there because you're realizing, wait a second, I don't know if I like this imbalanced thing that we do where we optimize towards criticism. I want to rebalance that. So do that. Rebalance it, right? And then if you, again, I feel like I'm just repeating myself, but if you need tools on how to rebalance that, make new choices, then you can lean on yourself, reflect, take ownership of it. You can lean on your community, your friends, your mentors. And if you need a formal relationship to do that, you can engage in a course, engage a coach, a mentor, like more professionally, things like that, to help you practice those new tools because you're essentially unlearning habits from childhood to relearn new ones in this next season.
Yeah, so a mentor of mine once said, people value their losses 2 times more than their wins. So like when you go to Las Vegas and you win $100, you're like, all right. You lose $100, you're like, shoot, that was painful, right? Yeah. So that knowledge in itself helps me try and balance criticisms versus compliments. And the other piece goes back to like understanding and knowing your visions and values. My wife knows herself well. Whenever she gets some criticism, it's literally water off a duck's back. She's like, that's fine. You don't know me, or even if it's right, it doesn't matter because I love myself, because I know who I am and I know what I care about. So that goes back to like the within and the whole confidence piece. And then people value their losses 2 times more than their wins. It's just kind of human nature. Mm-hmm. So.
Thank you.
I will go next. Thank you, everyone on the panel, for offering your thoughts. I'm curious, so Frank and I go back to the OG Facebook days, and
Not Meta.
Facebook. However, one thing that our sales leadership used to do was vision writing, which I have not done for 3 years because I feel like after the pandemic, like self-care kind of went down a little bit. But vision writing was this annual purpose that you would set aside time to write about your goals, purpose, for not only yourself, but what you want to do with the company and then where you envision yourself in that year. And you guys talked a lot about purpose today. How often are you revisiting your purpose? Are you doing it on an annual basis, or does it, like me, wait 3 years and then try to reevaluate, or when you have a life change? Like, how often are you trying to update your purpose and your vision and what you're doing?
I would say I'm an avid journaler, so I'm kind of revisiting it when it's kind of calls me. I hate the pressure of like doing it once a year and being like, okay, this is the moment. I need to look at it. I need to think of this like go forward plan for the next year. So I really wait for when I feel and I'm getting that itch to revisit it. But I would say like the more you check in with it, the better, because it's sort of alive and fluid. It should be evolving and changing as you change.
It's interesting because this question makes me think of what you just answered, Emily, a second ago. I do it definitely on an annual basis, but also when I feel called. The reason I say definitely is because I have this professional network I'm a part of, and it's an exercise that we do, so I know for sure we do it. We've been doing it for the last 5 years. And it's nice because we get to like share and hear others. But what I notice when I do that taking stock of what happened over this last period of time, I notice how hard I am on myself about the things that I didn't do. But taking stock of it in this way makes me all of a sudden realize, oh yeah, you may not have accomplished or done these things and that you're like really upset about. Like construction, do not renovate your home, like just don't do it. And then but look at all this progress that you made that I legitimately like don't even notice or think about. So I find that it's actually a really therapeutic exercise. We're like, oh, this is not that bad. We're doing pretty good. So I would say if that feels good to you, I don't really know why you're asking that question, but for me, it actually ends up feeling really nice to do regularly instead of a have to.
I'm kind of psycho about it. So I'll do my goals, and then I will actually create a project plan with my goals and write down on a monthly basis. And it's both professional and personal. So that, like, for example, when I do my performance reviews here, I have it all written down, right? And so it just makes it makes it easier to do performance reviews. So I try and do it regularly. Now, that's my on-stage comment. Real talk, I haven't updated in a while. And so, but I'm also giving myself permission to like fall down and be like, okay, get back up. So probably I'm gonna do it this next week. Since you brought that question up, I'm gonna go revisit it.
Yes. I also have a creepy spreadsheet template for this. Like Frank, I have it's psycho.
Thank you.
We'll take this last question. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we're all here at this conference, and you guys are basically fronting our community and leading currently. So for the people who are looking to become the future leaders and step into your shoes later, how can we prepare right now to step into that role? And, you know, beyond just like advocating for yourself, like what can we intrinsically develop in ourselves to become really good leaders and continue this community with a strong purpose and well?
I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh my God. All right. I love this last question. What was your name?
Elise.
Elise. Okay. Honestly, I keep saying this to everyone. You're already doing it. I think the fact that you are on this search, the fact that you even asked this question means that you have the intention to, so you're going to do it. You have the intention to be a strong next generation of leaders. You're already leading. You stood up. You decided to ask this question. Like you're doing it right now. And over time, consistency, doing this, what you're doing right now, showing up, coming to the networking events, asking the bold question about what do I look for around the next corner. I think you're doing it. Practical tip though, I keep going back to it. Create a practice for what we just talked about, reflecting, journaling, like all the things that you're kind of hearing us casually mention on the side. Do that. Because I think, just like Meghna mentioned earlier, your leadership journey will hit a point where you wonder, why am I doing it? But if you've got to practice now, early, in anchoring into the why you're doing it, then 20 years into your career, you may not be sitting up here saying, man, I really wish I knew how to do that 10 years ago. So you're doing it.
Thank you so much for amazing, inspiring questions and for sharing all of your knowledge today. Thank you.
Thank you.